if you look at many campuses, the support for Palestinian rights is at least as great, if not greater, than support for Israel today. Even after the shock of the attacks of the 6th of October, when there was enormous sympathy in American society generally for Israelis because of the huge number of Israeli civilian casualties. As many as 800, perhaps more, Israeli civilians were killed just at the beginning. So there was enormous sympathy, but that has not lasted in view of the atrocities being committed in Gaza. People say 800 civilians, 15,000 civilians. Well, they're all civilians. Children are children, unless you have a racist view, which is that some children are more valued than other children. Some civilians are more valued than other civilians. And this is not just true of young Black students or young Latino students or young Arab or Muslim students. It's also true of many young Jewish students. You look at college campuses, and Jewish Voice for Peace is a central component of the drives for divestment of these universities' assets from companies that support the Israeli occupation and of Palestinian rights generally. So there's a generational divide. Younger people have a much better access to information than their elders. They do not trust or pay any attention to the mainstream corporate media, which is full of lies as far as they're concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, the picture that is given by the American mainstream media is far, far less diverse than the picture given by the Israeli media. I mean, I read the New York Times in the morning and I read Haaretz or the Times of Israel. There's more disparity and more critical thinking in the Israeli press than in the Washington Post and the New York Times or on CNN or on MSNBC. So, and young people know that.
Isn't this just to close because they can't win? I'm talking about the Zionists. They can't really win the argument.
There's an argument that anti-Semitism is the refuge of scoundrels. And unfortunately, that is what's happening there. There is real virulent anti-Semitism in American society, most of it on the right. And there's some anti-Semitism, certainly, in some of the fringes of support for Palestine, but Palestinian rights. But in fact, given that they actually can't win the argument, how do you justify 56 years of occupation? What can you say to justify 56 years of occupation? What can you say to justify no rights for Palestinians in the occupied territories? What can you say to justify the ongoing incessant colonization and appropriation and dispossession going on in the West Bank? There's nothing you can say. There's no arguments that justify that. Unless you say Jewish supremacy and absolute right and God gave this land to us. I mean, say things like that are not acceptable to most college students. So you shut down the debate by saying, well, they're anti-Semites and their slogans are genocidal, which is actually what a university administrator at Columbia said, that the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is genocidal. It's part of the laws of the state of Israel. It's the platform of the Likud party, that from the sea to the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. That was the platform of the Likud party in 1977. So a bunch of students are hollering, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And the Israeli government actually is instantiating in law, in its constitution, that from the river to the sea, there will only be Jewish, the only sovereignty will be Jewish sovereignty.